good to see the young people here today, and I think it's well long overdue putting a memorial up to wonderful Republican revolutionaries who fought against fascism. It's brilliant to see this stone being put here in this beautiful national plaque here. So it's just long overdue. I suppose we have to wonder why Irish Republican fighters went to Spain. To understand that, we have to understand two things: what was happening in Spain and what was happening in Ireland, and what had happened in Ireland. In Spain in 1936, they came out of a long period. From 23 to 29, there had been a military dictatorship under Primo Rivera, and the nation was like a feudal system where the grandees, that's the dukes of this and the dukes of that, owned like 60% of the land. There was millions of peasants tilling the land for subsistence wages. And the military maintained an army at that time which was like a relic from the old conquistadores, like an army of nearly 250,000 men under very right-wing generals like Franco and Mola and Godai. And the military dictatorship were ruthless, and executions were just commonplace. And in 1929, the king abdicated. Was a sort of a monarchical system as well, feudal monarchy. And for the first time they had elections in 31. And there was a liberal centre-left mishmash of a government got in 1931. And they tried some land reforms. And at that time, they made Franco he was in charge of the war ministry. In 34, the Asturian miners revolted against the rise of fascism. And the fascists had developed an organisation called Escalation. And the right-wing generals were behind that. And they were trying for a fascist takeover of what now was a fledgling democracy. And when the Asturian miners revolted, also the Catalan peasants revolted at the same time, which was sort of driven by a Trotskyist element at that time in Catalan. And Franco went in ruthlessly and butchered men, women and children. 2,500 of the miners and their families were slaughtered, and 60,000 ended up in jail. That was in 1834. And after that, the right-wing fascist movement, taking succor from Mussolini in Italy and Hitler in Germany and Salazar in Portugal, and indeed Edward Mosley in England, were on the rise. The black shirts in Italy and the brown shirts in Germany. And in 1834, the People's Front got together and started to campaign against fascism. And by 1936, there was a general election, and certainly left-of-centre government was returned. And in that government, which was nearly 486 seats in the Cortes, which is the Spanish Parliament, there was no communists in that Parliament, and there was no socialists. They were all liberal, radical, left of centre. They've done a reasonably good job. The one thing they did do, they banished the three main generals to far off outposts. They sent Franco to the Canary Islands. I don't know, forget where they sent Mola, and Godai was sent somewhere else. And Franco immediately started to form a revolutionary front against democracy. and of course he had the army with him. And he started a revolt and took Morocco and made alliances with the Italians and the Germans. We flew his Moorish troops, about 30,000 Moorish troops in the mainland Spain, and they fought different battles, were defeated at Bilbao, different places, but consolidated again and decided to attack Madrid and break the Madrid-Valencia road, which was the heartland of Republican Spain. So here we had the crisis generals attacking a democracy, a fledgling democracy, and these generals were supported in total by the Catholic Church, by the hierarchy of the Church, supported by Mussolini, supported by Hitler, supported by all the Western states. So here we had an uprising against democracy, and the people who squealed most about democracy were the people who supported Franco. And the attack on Madrid started a war which lasted for 986 days, and I'll go into that after. But at the end of that war, Franco was victorious because of the support he got from the German army, from the Italian army and Air Force. In the middle of that, they bombed Guernica. The Nazi Condor Legion bombed men, women and children in the city of Guernica in the Basque country, and slaughtered thousands. And still they got the support of the church, still they got the support of so-called democratic governments. Couldn't have done it without fascist support. At the end of that war, Franco butchered over 100,000 people from the Republican side and set him in a dictatorship which was the last until his death. And it's good that Franco left the scene and Salazar left the scene at something the same time. And at least democracy is at a start again in Spain. You understand why fighters went to help Franco. It's fairly easy from a revolutionary point of view. Fascism was on the rise. Revolutionaries all over the world understood that. They understood exactly what was happening, and they decided to fight against Franco. The Republican papers at that time in Spain sent out a call for support, and the international brigades were formed. And eventually about 50,000 volunteers went to fight for Republican Spain against the fascist rise of Franco. The Irishmen wanted to join that. Most of them were ex-IRA. There was about 160 volunteers went to fight in the international brigades, and 60 of those were killed in Spain. Franco eventually died in Germany. He was the commander of the Irish contingent in the international brigades. The international brigades were formed into 6 brigades, from the 10th to the 15th. And the 15th brigade was the British brigade. And in that they had the American Lincolns, the Canadian Mackenzies, a Latin American group, and the British group. The Irish contingent eventually were formed under the British group, all English speaking, and they took the name of the Connoly Column. Frank Ryan was the man in charge. They understand why they went to Gaul. We have to go back now and look at it. And I don't want to go too far, I'm not an historian, but in the lockout of 13, when the fascists and the big business consolidated around Martin Murphy and the Confederation of businessmen in Dublin, when they attacked the workers in the lockout, the press and the church, and especially the church, supported these big businessmen to put down people who didn't earn enough to feed their kids. And Jim Larkin and Connoly were the mainstays of that lockout. And the workers of Liverpool, as you know, supported the workers in Dublin. But the lines were drawn clearly within the country, on the left, right, taxes. And the accusation that everybody who went on strike was a communist was played to the hilt by every bishop, every archbishop and a cardinal in this country. Even Cardinal McCrory, who we would have sometimes a soft spot for, was vicious in his condemnation of the Irish working class who stood up to fight for their rights. There's where the lines were drawn in 1813, and those lines were compounded in 1816 at the Rising, where the press, once again, the Independent and the Times and the Catholic Church actually called the execution of its leaders. And when Connoly was the only one left, the Times still called for his execution. And that's why he was executed in a shower. They weren't satisfied that the revisionists who claimed that 1816 was a criminal conspiracy by a bunch of lunatics, that Patrick Pearse was insane, that Connoly was a communist. They played the anti-communist card, and the anti-communist card, which was a complete lie, became de facto politics in this country, and it infiltrated even the ranks of the Republican struggle. And in 1932, when De Valera won the election, at that time, O'Duffy had been appointed Minister of Police in this country by the Musgrave government. And to say that there was a split in the Republican ranks would be probably maybe too hard. There was certainly factions within the Republican struggle. For example, the Protestant contingent who went to Bodenstown in 1834 were attacked by the very right wing of the Republican struggle at Bodenstown. The banner that they carried was for the Workers' Republic, and down with capitalism. And IRA volunteers at that time tried to rip the banner off them. One of the men who was on that march was Liam Tomlinson, who was a Protestant from this city, who eventually went to fight the international brigades and was killed in Spain. So you can see that the big enemies of the Republican struggle at that time weren't just the British imperial forces, but they were the Catholic Church and big business who coalesced against mythical communism and got anybody concerned with the working class got them a dirty name. So a lot of the people, the Communist Party was formed here in 1833, and a lot of IRA volunteers who were sick of the squabbling that was going on within the ranks. A lot of them drifted into the Communist Party. I'm thinking of people like Kit Conway from Tipperary, who was a very good Republican fighter in the Common War. People like that joined the Communist Party. So Mick Price and Gilmore and Potter O'Donnell and to a lesser extent Frank Ryan formed the Congress. There was a further split within the movement, and a lot of part of the West came over whether they would go on a banner of for the Republic or for the Workers' Republic. I mean, they were arguing over things that were of very little importance to us today. But at that time, the Workers' Republic was seen as being some sort of sucker for the Communist Party. And Republicans in general, being very Catholic, believed their church's position that the Reds eat the babies. In actual fact, Father Flanagan, who was the president of Sinn Féin, spoke out for on behalf of the Soviets, and he said that ethnic minorities like the Basques had more freedom under the Soviets than they ever did have in their own country, and he was 100% right. Father Flanagan was one of the only priests who stood up for workers' rights and for truth. Father Laborda from the Basque country came to this country to try and explain the situations of the Spanish Civil War, and the church wouldn't give him a platform. Queen's University refused to let him speak. So it was only individuals like Frank Ryan who tried to put the truth out. But make no mistake about it, Republican support for workers' rights. But they seen the rise of fascism. When people are attacked O'Duffy being very imaginative and looking at the black shirts and the brown shirts, the Fine Gael party founded the blue shirts. The blue shirts collected money through the church in this country to send volunteers to Spain. At the end of the day, it was called the Pope's Army. They sent 500 volunteers to Spain. The only people they fought with was their allies. They fought a Moorish group of soldiers one night. I think a couple of them were killed. They disgraced the name of Ireland throughout that period, returned in disgrace to this country, and some of their leading lights, for example, Eamon Horan from Galway, said that O'Duffy had disgraced and besmirched the name of Ireland, that they had went out there to fight what they believed was a war of Catholicism against communism, and they found out that the politics of O'Duffy had overtaken the reasons why they went. So it was a dirty little escapade, supported in total by the Martin Murphy syndicates, by the Independent, the Times, by the hierarchy of the church. I mean, they held mass for them, they held church collections for these people, and these people went to Spain and dirtied the name of Republican Ireland. IRA traders, who had, some of them had joined the Communist Party, they certainly were in support of the Congress. They decided to go to Spain in ones and twos and threes. Eventually 160 of them went, and Franco articulated their position. They went to fight fascism, and they went particularly to redeem the name of Republican Ireland that had been dirtied by Eamon O'Duffy. Eamon O'Duffy, by the way, was in charge of the Southwestern Division in the Civil War. He was the man who sanctioned, if not by word, certainly by authority, sanctioned the main massacre of Ballyseedy Cross. So that's Eamon O'Duffy, who was the champion of the Pope's Army. So the international volunteers were joined by these Irishmen and formed the Connoly Column. The Connoly Column, by all contemporaneous reports from the Spanish Civil War and indeed historical reports after, they excelled themselves because most of them had been active in the Clan War, and some of them indeed in the War of Independence. And these people just showed their experience on the battlefield, and some of the big battles, especially the Battle of Arama, where 25,000 of the Republican troops were killed. When Franco tried to cut the Madrid-Valencia road, was the most serious battle of the war. Franco was defeated on that occasion. At the Battle of Teruel and Benini and different other places, IRA volunteers in the Connoly Column excelled themselves, and when they were leaving in 1938, La Pasionara, which was Dolores Everuru, she was a famous woman who fought for workers' rights, and she was known as the Passion Flower. She was the heroine of the Republican forces, and she had coined the phrase in Madrid, no pasarán, they shall not pass, which became a famous revolutionary quote, like Chucky Arla, for example, it became that sort of a phrase. And Dolores gave every single one of the Irish in the Connoly Column an individually signed affidavit of the respect that the Spanish people had for the revolutionary forces. On the war itself, the Communist Party, who were the only party who had any real sincerity in them, the 70,000 members of the Spanish Communist Party handed themselves over lock, stock and barrel to the Republican forces. Most of the army had defected with Franco, and the Soviets themselves were the only country to support the revolution, or the Republican forces. They supplied them with whatever materials they could, some fighter planes, but at no time did the forces from the Soviet ever exceed 2,500 people, including airmen and advisors and technicians. Whereas, for example, the Italian Air Force gives somewhere in the region of 100,000 men and planes to the Franco forces. The Condor legions of the Nazis, who practiced their bombing runs in Guernica, supplied the Franco forces with countless men, tanks, machinery, planes. So the Soviets in the Spanish Civil War certainly excelled themselves from entirely. There was some sectarian stuff going on with the Trotskyists, the POUM, and some nasty stuff that went on in Catalan and Barcelona and places like that. But in general, the Connoly Column were involved in a straightforward fight against fascism, and they excelled themselves. And when they came home in 38, they came home, as far as we're concerned, in the Republican struggle, as far as we're concerned, they were heroes. Franco eventually returned and was captured on the Oregon front, and eventually, as you know, went and met up with John Russell in Dresden, and eventually, when Russell died, coming home, Franco returned and was buried over in Germany. And in 1879, 3 of the international fighters in the International Brigade, that was Frank Edwards, Peter O'Connor, and Screwback Mick O'Riordan, went and brought his body home, and he was buried with a great deal of support in Rosnavan in 1879. Mick O'Riordan would have been here today, but he's ill, and he's getting old, and he's sanded best. So that's the wee story of the international brigades, and the famous brigade, the 15th Brigade. I'm sure you've heard songs about it. And there's 2 songs, the Franco Regimento, which was the Communist Party anthem, the International, that you heard a minute ago, and the song of the 15th Brigade, which I think Christy Moore made fairly popular a few years ago. That was the story of the Irish volunteers who went there. That's long overdue that they're honoured here today. Next, I'm going to introduce Eddie Keenan. Eddie himself, he's one of a lot of people here. He's slightly old Republican, so he's only on feel. He's going to feel the attack here, and afterwards he's going to say a few words, just a few. So, Eddie. Are you going to say a few words here as well? Well, Broad Autumn, I was told, it's more an honour to than the Enshordas and Lockjaw and Lockjaw than the daily programme who we were on the Spania, the Crescent and Public Spania. It's a great honour to me to be here and be asked to unveil this memorial, and I want to thank the people who asked me to do it, because I've always been, for long years, I have known a lot of people who fought in Spain, and a couple of friends of mine who died and wounded in Madrid are great memories of mine, and I was very pleased to come here today. Thank you very much.